Alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the ongoing deadly protests in and outside New Delhi, where the Sikh farmers are still protesting. Since it is a problem related to the political economy primarily, and the corporate culture has such an influence out there that basically the Prime Minister is under that kind of an influence, so he is supporting the corporate world out there. At the same time, when you talk about the protests that have been going on for months and the kind of commitment that has been shown by the Sikh farmers, that's unbelievable. They say that they can stay there for another 1 year. They've got enough food and enough will to, in fact, carry on their protest. Now, interestingly, the clashes they have started since it was 26th of January yesterday, the Indian Republic Day, where I, in fact, very interestingly told you last night also that the parade was on and they were showing the tanks and the missiles and the mighty military arsenal of the Indian forces, whereas the poor farmers were still asking for their rights. And the way the police went after them and the clashes, I mean, you can see that on your visual screens also. The police is running away now. That is what is happening because the will of the farmer, that's too high. At the same time, when you talk about the stakes, remember about more than 70% of the Indian people are fed by these people. Just imagine. These farmers, they work day in and day out to make sure that there is enough produce to look after the needs of the Indian population. But this is what is happening to them. And this is not only one area. People are coming from Haryana, people are coming from Punjab, people are coming from Rajasthan. Now this is expanding. This is what exactly is going on. And the real picture of the so-called Indian democracy is this. You can see that on your screen. You can well imagine what's going on out there. These poor people are just asking for the simple right. They have been growing various crops for centuries. The kind of support these people should have had, that's unfortunately missing, except for a few statements coming from the people from the Congress. So today we'll be talking about these. Let me give you the major points today in our today's program. As it says, thousands of Indian farmers battled police across New Delhi. Farmers are protesting against laws that deregulate the sale of crops. We'll be talking about this. The laws lay out the framework for private traders to purchase crops directly from the farmers and bypass the government marketing boards meant to ensure fair prices for the farmers. Agriculture provides livelihood to nearly 70% of the country's 1.3 billion people and accounts for around 15% of the $2.7 trillion economy. Unrest among an estimated 150 million land-downing farmers is one of the biggest tests Modi has faced since coming to power in 2014. Furthermore, then 300,000 farmers have killed themselves since the 1990s. Just look at the number, 300,000. These people committed suicides. Nearly 10,300 did so in 2019 alone. Farmers and their workers are also abandoning agriculture in droves. 2,000 of them every day, according to the last census in 2011. Pretty interesting figures. Then from the late 2019, there were months of protests against the racist citizenship law, culminating in sectarian riots in Delhi in February 2020 that killed over 50 people. And last but not the least, says depicting the farmers as anti-national. Just imagine, the anti-national, as happened with 2019 protesters, backfired since they enjoy widespread support among Indians. Ignoring their demands also clashes with Modi's self-styled image as a champion of the poor. So these are the major points we'll be talking about in our today's show. Let me introduce you to our panelists. We have with us in our studio Syed Muhammad Ali. He's the Director, Strategic Affairs, CASS. Thank you so much, Ali Saab, for taking out the time and talking to PTV World. And we have two more guests on Skype. The first one is from United Kingdom, Magun Singh Saab. He is an assistant spokesperson of the Sikh Council in the United Kingdom. Sardar Saab, thank you so much for taking out your time and talking to PTV World, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we have with us our next guest is from India, Mandeep Singh Bajwa Saab. Bajwa Saab is a columnist, is a journalist, is a writer. Bajwa Saab, thank you so much for your time, sir, as well.
Thank you for calling me. Jai Hind.
Sat Sri Akal ji, thank you so much. Now, if you allow me, sir, let's start off from our guest sitting in UK, and then we'll be talking and having a word with the other guest. Now, sir, when we see, I mean, earlier before the start of the show, me and my friend Ali, we were just having a word, and I was just praising the Sikh community and the people and the kind of love I got when I visited in 2017. And I was telling him and that, you know, these people are so loving, so caring, so hardworking. And I think Sikh community is the pride of India. That is what I believe in. Whether you go to States or UK or even in India for that matter. The most, I think, special guest when you see a Sikh in Pakistan is a Sardar. You know, this is what we believe in. This is how we feel about you. So obviously this is primary reason to conduct this show. Now, so whatever is going on in India, we totally understand. We totally believe that this is an internal affair of India. But when we see these kind of visuals where the clashes are taking place and Sikh community is battered by the Indian police, it seems that there isn't much difference in what is happening in Kashmir and what is happening outside Delhi now, sir. Your take, Sardar Saab.
I mean, the first point you raised is in regards to the Sikh community. I think we have a philosophy, as every culture does, and I think our philosophy of Sarbat Dapla. And I think that philosophy follows us wherever we go, whether in the UK, whether in India or in Pakistan or anywhere in the world. We have this idea that there needs to be well-being for everybody. Because if there's well-being for everybody, then everybody can succeed and have a successful life. Where there is not an equilibrium in that, you will get clashes and you will get disharmony within the community. And I think, like you've said, in regards to the recent incidences and in regards to the whole agitation of the farmers, it's quite sad to see because, like you said, 70% of the Punjab region, Haryana region has been the breadbasket of India for the last 50, 60 years, even longer, even at the time of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So Punjab has always been the breadbasket. And even though I wasn't born there, but we have our heritage links, our religious links to that land. And we always feel that when anything happens in Punjab or in around India, we feel affected by it because we're related to it through family, through heritage. So there can never be an Indian's internal matter because we will always be connected. So when people say this is just for India to deal with and is their internal issue, well, that's not true because Indians also live outside of India and we also have a connection to India. So whatever happens in India affects us and we have a right, we have a voice to raise against it if it's causing disharmony or if it's causing any kind of issues to our people. Now, from outside, when we view the events which are going on in Delhi, especially yesterday, it's quite hurtful because we also want to celebrate in the Republic Day of India. The farmers have as much right as everybody else to celebrate within that day. And when they had agreed routes, and this is the irony, they had agreed the routes with the Delhi administration. These are the routes we're going to take through the rally, and we want to be seen by the people, and we want to show our love for the Delhi people, and vice versa, receive their love through celebrating the day together. Now, those agreed routes were first formulated, and then on the exact day when the parade was going to take place, the police is then told to change those routes. Why? Because they want a reaction. They want a reaction from the farmers to show them to be anti-national. And that's the perfect timing, isn't it? On the Republic Day of India, they want to show the farmers or the Punjabis to be anti-national. And that has always been their agenda, because they want to make someone the scapegoat of all of this. They want to jeopardize the movement, which is a peaceful movement. It's the biggest of its kind in the world. And they want to create some kind of commotion. And yesterday was their day to do it. And to be honest with you, I don't think they were successful. Yes, there were some clashes for which the police of Delhi and the Indian administration were responsible for. But on the larger scale of things, I think the farmers too came out on top.
All right. Now, coming to you, Mandeep Singh Bajwa sir, normally whenever we see, because normally, protests take place almost everywhere, even in Pakistan, if there is an issue, at the end of the day, negotiation, talks, that's what is the name of the game. But over here, it seems that the Indian government is pretty reluctant and they are not ready to talk. And when you talk about the corporate culture, sir, farming is the oldest profession in the world, sir. And at the same time, when we talk about Haryana or Punjab, we always give examples of India that look at the government policies, the way they look after their farmers, and we compare that with Pakistan also. But unfortunately, what is happening now in India, we never thought this could actually be seen at some stage, because the way the clashes are taking place, and for a legitimate cause, these people are out having a peaceful protest, but the government seems to deny everything. Your take, Janab Mandeep Singh Bajwa sahab.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was nice listening to my friend from the UK. First, let me clear one thing. This is not a Sikh issue per se. It's a farmers issue, and it's an issue affecting all Indian farmers. And the current agitation has, of course, large representation from Punjab, but also from Haryana, also from Western UP, also from Rajasthan, and from all parts of India. We've seen farmers coming from Tamil Nadu. There have been huge protests in Maharashtra. Farmers have marched from Nasik to Mumbai and held a huge demonstration, huge public meeting in the heart of Bombay. And the support for the farmers is coming from across the board, from all sections of Indian society. Having cleared that, India is changing, and something has already changed. And as you pointed out, you pointed towards the corporate culture. Uh, they seem to have, and the big corporations seem to have inordinate amount of say in this government's policy making. And what farmers feel, the propaganda against the farmer has been that they don't understand. They have not understand the reforms. I mean, how can you say such a thing? I mean, the farmers are perfectly capable of understanding the issues affecting them. After all, it's a matter of life and death for them. So they have to understand the issues. And the farmer today is much more aware than many sections of urban society. I mean, they've always been very aware, and now they're even more aware with all the new information superhighway, reaching out and reaching the villages, and they fully understand the issues. And the main objection which the farmers have to the three new black farm laws, as we call them, on 2 points. One is that there is no guarantee given for the minimum support price, which is the mainstay, the bedrock of agriculture, particularly in Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP, where MSP is, it's an absolute thing. In other parts of India, some parts of India, MSP is not even given. But here it has always been given. It is a total bedrock of Indian agriculture. And this came about in the mid-60s when the government, in its push towards self-sufficiency in food, brought in new agriculture practices. They imported a large number of tractors. They, through the universities, the extension education program of the agriculture universities, they sought to introduce new farming practices, new seeds, new crops, fertilizers, everything, and they wanted farmers to invest in all these new seeds, fertilizers, tractors, agriculture machinery, and practices. So to provide them with with the mainstay, with the safety net, the minimum support price came in. And in fact, it was the Punjab government of that time which started the government procurement of food grains, and it was picked up by the central government, and it's become a system now. And the second is, the agriculture produce marketing committees, where farmers go and they're able to sell their produce. Most of it is procured by the government's agencies like the Food Corporation of India, and some by private players. And in these three new laws, both these systems are, sought to be not just downplayed but abolished altogether. So, farmers have a strong objection to that, and they feel that this way they'll be at the mercy of corporations who will dictate terms to them, and most of all, they will not get the minimum price guaranteed to them currently. So there's been a huge outcry over this, and farmers have been agitating since September, or probably before that. And the way the farm laws were brought in is very unfair. I mean, in the middle of a pandemic, the government promulgated
Exactly.
ordinances, and
Exactly.
then they bulldozed the laws through Parliament without any discussions, without seeing, and then then the government has been making claims that we are consulted with the farmers, we are consulted with all stakeholders. Serial agitation, applications put in under the Right to Information Act revealed that the government itself admitted that no process of consultation had taken place. So, the government stand is, very, very tenuous, and it's something which farmers have rightly objected to. And they have been forced to take up the path of agitation because, the government at first was reluctant to talk to them. When they found that, the agitation is gathering steam, then they agreed very reluctantly. And even then, they've been very obdurate, very rigid in their stand, and the farmers also hardened their stand, and they currently say that nothing less than total repeal will work. But at least at the minimum, the government will have to give written guarantees of minimum support price.
I totally agree with you, Siddhartha, because at the end of the day, what you said, it makes a lot of sense, and they have a very legitimate concern also when you talk about the farmers. And you also mentioned that they are not only the sick farmers, they're all over. I mean, this protest is taking place in UP also. People have come from Tamil Nadu, people have come from Rajasthan, and I mean, it's going on because 70% of the people who are actually related to this agriculture side, I mean, they feel threatened. Economic prosperity is the name of the game.
I found a lot of genuine support coming in from people in Pakistan. Genuine kind of support, not the
because
usual,
Pakistan at the end of the day is also an agro-based country, and we totally understand because the problems are very similar as well. The kind of crops we grow are almost similar. The kind of language we speak is similar. So, the concerns are similar as well. But Sayyid Muhammad Ali.
Same plight. They feel that they have the same plight.
All right. Sayyid Muhammad Ali Saab, now, first of all, Siddhartha very categorically mentioned that, there is a corporate culture, very influential people. And when you talk about the farmers, the issue of the support price even exists in Pakistan as well. The support price for wheat, support price for so-and-so crop. The problem is that there has to be some sort of a guarantee. That's exactly what Siddhartha was saying. And when earlier, before the start of the program, what we were talking about was again this political economy. That is the name of the game. Yeah. So your take on that, sir?
Thank you.
What could be a win-win situation for both the parties?
You rightly pointed out, as we were earlier discussing, that essentially it's a political economy issue. But it also explains and manifests in 4 very critical dimensions in order to understand what's going on and how significant is this episode which we saw yesterday. I think that there are 4 aspects. There is a political aspect, there is an economic aspect, there is a social aspect, and there is a strategic aspect. The most important thing was when you see on the front pages of today's newspapers that the Lal Qila is not having the Indian national flag, but a flag of which is reflective of the aspirations of some people. That is a huge signal for the world, which has expectations from India to rise as a net security provider in this region, and also as a critical pivot in the Indo-Pacific strategy. So that, I think, was noticed. Most interesting aspect for our viewers would be that even the US Embassy in India issued a warning that people should avoid going into those areas which are affected by it. So even the US government has noticed with concern the politically unstable situation that we are witnessing in India. The second aspect is that obviously India wants to join the UN Security Council. And this is a manifestation of the actual political, social and economic reality. The second aspect is political, which is very important.
And that is?
Because India is projecting itself for so many years as the world's largest democracy. But inspired by what my Sikh friends just said, I think this protest, which is countrywide and reflective of the aspirations and concerns of the majority of Indian farmers, which is not just
and legitimate,
and not just it's not just about a food security issue. It is a major employment issue. It's a bread and butter issue. So basically, those who are sitting in the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha are not representing the concerns and aspirations of the majority of Indians. So that is a huge issue in terms of the failure of Indian democracy as a political system, because if it is a sound, successful system, then it should make laws and policies which are sensitive and reflective of the aspirations of the people.
Correct.
And obviously, this would not be happening in New Delhi if the policies and decisions were based on the aspirations and concerns of the farmers. So that is the political issue. The third is the political economy, which is the economic issue. It is very important that when you go towards corporate farming or when you move towards some sort of corporate industry based development of agricultural sector, the culture, the history, agriculture is the oldest profession, a very successful profession, especially in this part of the world for centuries. You are shaking the foundations of the society. So you can't take this decision overnight. So the process, and that was your question.
But don't you think
the process
was some sort of homework as well, sir?
And they should have taken all the people, all the unions, all the farmer community on board. What do they want? So that the corporate interests or the industrialization of the agriculture sector and the interests of the vast majority of the farmers need to be balanced.
Correct.
But the last point I think will be the most interesting is the strategic aspect. That while India, especially the Modi Sarkar, wanted to present to the world on 26th January its might and its show of force in terms of the military parade, showcasing the Rafale aircraft, the T-90 tanks, but the world attention was not looking at the Indian power, but they were looking at what's happening on the streets of Delhi in terms of the riots and the manifestation and expression of the grievances of the farmers. That is the actual reality of India, which now I think the international community is recognizing and rising up.
And I'm sure, Ali, when you talk about the human rights, I mean, this is purely human rights violations. I mean, one poor guy died just because his tractor overturned and he was dead there and then. And then the clashes taking place. I mean, Sikhs were always regarded, and they are still remembered as a very strong, I would say, nation, a group of people, very patriotic. But when it comes to the legitimate side of it, I mean, they will never back out. One thing is for sure, because
and they are saying they have expressed, the farmer unions have said that they can stay in
for 1 year,
for 1 year in
yes.
New Delhi.
Yes.
So this is not going to go away. So they have turned New Delhi into another Kashmir.
That's and I would blame the Indian government for that, because they should have taken this decision. These people, if they are out and so committed, there has to be some sort of a logic attached to it. Now, going back to our friend in UK, now, Manmohan Singh Saab, if there is a proper way forward, or if I may ask you that what should be the right approach from both these sides, what would you say?
I mean, the first thing I want to pick up is on the subsidy aspect. Even in the UK, farmers are paid subsidies. Even in these countries, there is a system which is introduced to support the farmers.
Yep.
So it's not something which is unique just to everyone in the world, but it's a recognized fact of the world that farmers do need that support. That if they are producing these products, they need to be taken. I mean, look, there are two ways which we see in the UK. Even here, we remember there were several laws which were passed, which went against the farming. And even, for example, fox hunting, there was a big issue around that. And the government here did then review those laws and did retract them as well. There's no shame in admitting when you're wrong, you are wrong. But I think there is this kind of attitude in the Indian administration that they would not take or they would not reverse what they have put forward. So we think the first thing to do is that they need to understand that the farmer's position, until you are, like I think Mr. Eligi said, this is their bread and butter. If their bread and butter is gone, then what do they have left? And I think until the Indian administration understands that, they would not understand the concerns of the farmers. Because these farmers are the ones who own the 2 acres, the 5 acres. Some of them may own the 100 or 200 acres. But what are they compared to 10,000 acre of a corporation? They're finished. So they have to understand that these farmers and the whole of their produce is reliant upon these subsidies, which are worldwide. So the solution would be first and foremost is not to suspend them, but to say to the farmers, okay, we want to go forward with you. So let's sit down and let's reinvent something which can be agreeable to both sides. First, reinvent what could be applicable and acceptable to both sides. Once you've invented that, then you can obviously put them forward, get the support of your people, and retract these laws. These laws will have to be taken back because the way the situation is now, that the farmers have made their stand. And this is their final stand. The farmers are not going to go back on false promises and then come back another 2-3 years or another year later, because they're saying, aren't they, that the high courts have said for 2 years we will suspend these laws. After 2 years, will the farmers be doing the same thing again? I mean, this is no joke for them. So the way they see it, they are here now and they are not going to go back until their demands are met. And I think the way forward is that the government need to admit they made a mistake. It was a joke. I mean, I saw how the Lok Sabha passed these laws. It was an absolute joke of democratic process. They went against their own democratic process in their own Lok Sabha. Their own MPs were MLAs or whatever the correct terminology is for the Indian members of parliament. They themselves objected to the way this law was passed and they just forced it through. So the whole process was a joke. It wasn't democratic. So from the day one, how can you then say this is a law which will benefit your farmers, which has not even followed your democratic process correctly? Listen to your farmers, like Mandeep Singh said. They are not illiterate. They are fully illiterate. They're fully aware of what's being implemented, and they should be listened to, and they should be consulted in any future such laws. But these laws need to be removed at all cost.
So primarily, it's more about having a proper negotiation and then a proper commitment coming from the government for the support of the farmers. But again, I mean, what if they say it and they don't do it? Because I've been reading, and there were protests taking place in 2019, and look at the number of farmers. I mean, this is not the first time, in fact, we are doing a show on this issue. The highest suicide rate as far as the farmers are concerned, that is in India. And let me put this question to Mandeep Singh Bajwa Saab, that I mean, now this is about a certain law the government wants in place, and the protesters or the farmers, they have a very, very deep concern and a legitimate right to oppose it. But sir, also let's throw light on the previous issues. And interestingly, look at the number of people who committed suicide, sir. Why was that so? Bajwa Saab?
Well, thank you. I fear I must start with the correction. The Indian tricolor flying on top of the Red Fort was not replaced or desecrated in any way, and still flies proudly over there. And that is a bit of disinformation which I know has taken a lot of people in. The farmers planted, they hoisted a Sikh religious flag, and later on they took it down. Well, and in any case, that incident is over now, whatever.
All right.
Regarding, it's a very sad fact, the farmer suicides. Over the years, over the decades, fragmentation of land holdings has led to, most farmers tilling very small pieces of land, which are really not sustainable. I mean, farming on those small bits of land is not really, they can't even use proper machinery, and sometimes they've got to I've been a village council leader myself for a longish period, and also worked with other agriculture and cooperative and financial institutions in the rural areas. So we try to provide farmers with the best agriculture machinery and all, but it still is not enough. And the farmers are very independent also. They like to own their own machinery, their own tractors, you have everything self-sustaining. But fragmentation has deprived them of the benefits of modern technology. And on top of it, the debts, the crop loans, other the things, then, conspicuous consumption, the growing consumerism, and has resulted in a lot of indebtedness. And that is something we noticed by the British also. You remember Sir Malcolm Darling's excellent book at the turn of in the last century, The Punjab Peasant in Prosperity and Debt, which is still a classic, still very relevant now, right now. But what I'm coming to is that, this weight of this indebtedness has forced many farmers in their despair to take their own lives, which is a very sad thing. And the government has tried to help, but they can't do enough. And also, they would certainly not like to promote the taking of people's promote this thing of fact of people taking their own lives. So they sort of tend to downplay it. And sometimes there have been instances where governments have written off debts and all, but it's still not enough. I think the whole new look has to be taken in agriculture, but it cannot be done in the way that it's being sought to be done now by the growing corporatization, because the farmer is very independent. He doesn't like to be beholden to anybody, and he would like to till his own land. I mean, every farmer is an emperor in his own right. So these are sort of things which the current dispensation, the political bureaucratic dispensation in Delhi doesn't understand, and their growing dependence on the corporates for electoral funding has placed in a position where they've got to deliver on some promises. In the beginning of this ruling party's last term, they brought in this land acquisition bill, which again was very slanted in favor of corporates, and they really didn't do very much to favor the farmers. But there was strong opposition in parliament, and the leader of the largest opposition party, the Congress, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, made this famous remark calling the current government the Soot Boot Ki Sarkar, which really cut them to the quick, and they were quick to abandon the land acquisition law. And after that, again, corporates have wanted their pound of flesh, so they are now collecting. And with so many elections, crucial elections coming up, and with the ruling party's attempt to win over the whole country, even in Punjab, even in Jammu and Kashmir, so their dependence on corporates is growing day by day.
But Bajwa sir, another point. I mean, in 2014, when Modi government took charge, I mean, the overall concept was that he was supported largely by the corporate side, and he made a lot of promises, and he wanted to convert the entire India into somewhat like a Gujarat model. And then even in the second election, when you look at the support he got from the corporate culture, obviously, so if you're getting some sort of a monetary support from that side or otherwise, you're bound to take certain decisions that would favor them financially. Obviously, that is the name of the game. So do you believe that at some stage, I mean, there could be, a balance, an equilibrium where the corporate culture would step back a little, the protesters would be, would be taken care of, and their wishes, I'm not saying 100% what they are demanding would be taken into account, but at least to some level where they are satisfied. Do you see that happening in the coming days, or you believe that this protest or the strength it has, it is going to gain further momentum? Bajwa Saab.
Well, as I said, the corporates are now out to get their pound of flesh. I mean, with the amount of money that they invested in this government and its electoral machine, they want some return. So this is one way that I mean, these large corporations have always wanted to get into the retail trade in food, which is something. I mean, it doesn't require much marketing. I mean, people have got to have food. I mean, if you control the retail trade, I mean, look at the amount of money that you'll make. And and then through a process of storage and value addition and all, and packaging, you present this to the consumers, and I mean, you really clean up. But then then they're going to procure the grains at low prices, which is where MSP comes in. So they can't really have this MSP there. But then the farmer can't be left at the mercy of market forces. And this is not something unique to India. It's a universal phenomenon. I mean, the USA pays farmers 10 times more subsidies than the Indian government gives it. I mean, they have to subsidize farming. They have to subsidize farming. Otherwise, your food security will go for a 6. I mean, if farmers are deprived of subsidy, they're deprived of an assured income, if deprived of financial security, and they'll abandon farming and take up jobs. And then who's going to be left to grow food? I mean,
absolutely.
There's something which everybody understands. I mean, farmers in USA are sometimes paid to leave their fields empty, not grow crops. So
exactly, to maintain the prices. I totally understand. Yes, sir. That is the way.
Prices don't crash. No, we've seen it here. Prices of potatoes sometimes really crash when there's a glut. I mean, remember these plated potatoes, 78, 79, when I mean the prices totally crashed, and I mean the potato farmers were out on the streets. So
exactly, and same thing happened in United States of America also. I remember they were like they had so much of produce, but they were not allowed to sell it. So they were just distributing it to the poor people out there. And people used to come and travel for about 100 miles to get it. Can you imagine? Now, very interesting, very interesting analysis, Bajwa Saab. So your take. Let's take the same point.
Very quickly, I think, let me add, I mean, my first book was on Indian nuclear program, and let me share with your viewers today that the India, as per their own official documents, acquired the ability to test nuclear weapons in the 60s. But they decided, the political decision not to conduct a test was largely based on the food security considerations, because at that time, India was also a recipient of US food program, and they thought that the US sanctions will destabilize the government and the government will go. So they did not test their nuclear weapon till the time they achieved that confidence that the US sanctions will not affect. So food
and the kind
security,
of subsidies which were given to those farmers in India were unbelievable. Like
so the economy and politics and the food security are critical issues, and I think this event is not an episode in isolation. It needs to be seen in the political, economic, strategic implications. It is very important, because what is simmering, it is a reflection of the reality that the Modi Sarkar has neglected and tried to sweep under the carpet. It is very important for the observers.
But the million-dollar question is that, sir, is Modi going to ditch the corporate support, or obviously, if they are investing, it happens everywhere in the world. If they are investing, they want the return also.
So it is very important for the world to realize that this, facade of Hindutva is sponsored by the corporate India and also a bit of diaspora as well. But underneath, it lacks the strong roots of the political system. It lacks the support of the majority of the people. It lacks the support and consideration of the farmers. And I think the Indian political economy will not be able to absorb this shock. And I think this will gain momentum in future. and weaken and seriously damage the current government, because the corporate sector has funded the Hindutva project, but it lacks the economic and political support and wider appeal within the farmer community, which is, committing suicides in thousands of numbers in the last 30 years. So what else do you need? I don't think Indian reality can be better understood from any event than this particular one. And I understand the sensitivity of Bajwa Saab, but I think if anybody has to see the headlines in today's newspapers, even today's Dawn front page picture is that, an independent Khalistan movement flag was raised, and it is something, although temporarily.
Maybe that could not be the aim of the majority.
Yes.
But in such a chaos,
Yes.
anything can happen.
Absolutely. And people will, and I as a political analyst feel that such irresponsible policies by the BJP government can accelerate and escalate the independence movements in different parts of India, which and the economic aspect will further reinforce their drive and aspiration for independence. It will weaken India politically, socially, and economically.
Because when we talk about, we are not doing a propaganda or anything, because we have got guests from India and from UK, and they are giving their own opinion about it. But interestingly, you talk about CNN, you talk about BBC, you talk about any international top channel. They are covering this story. I mean, they're taking it as a headline.
And the US embassy in Delhi is issuing a warning that please, for the US citizens, don't visit there. So you think if the US citizens are advised against visiting those areas of New Delhi, do you think foreign investors are going to come and add India and help them, develop economically and strategically? I think the international community is beginning to understand Indian reality better now.
But let's see, I mean, there's another last quick comment from you regarding the future course of action. You believe that the Modi government is going to sit with these protesters or their leaders for that matter and come out with some sort of a viable solution, or this protest is going to go on actually for some more time?
Actually,
and it could get deadly as well.
Actually, dilemma is because Modi Sarkar, and I think our friends from India aptly pointed out, because they have been funded by the corporate sector. So so their commitment towards the corporate financier is too much. On the other hand, the grievance of the people is also significant, and it is growing.
The grievance of the people, I think, to me is more important.
Yes.
That should be addressed on ASAP basis.
Because the test of essentially the test of the political system and success is, does it reflect and represent the will of the people or not? And the current dispensation does not seem even sensitive, let alone representative of their
there
concern.
was this young Sikh, his name was Naresh Singh, and somebody was interviewing him, and he said, well, look at our commitment. This was the person who said that we can stay here for 1 year, and he just drove his tractor into the cloud of that tear gas. What I'm saying is, this is the level of commitment. Yes. And as far as Sikhs are concerned, I'm not sure about the rest of
they're a very proud community,
Sir, very proud, committed, very proud, very committed, very patriotic, and good people.
They're no nonsense. They will not take this. At all. They will not take this from BJP.
Exactly, and I don't think they will back out. But there has to be a proper course of action. There should be proper negotiations. And yes, we do understand that the corporate culture has a lot of influence. But I think the people of India matter more. These farmers matter more. Food security, water security. This is a part of the national security.
Because if BJP doesn't reflect and listen to their grievances, they will let nobody down except their own nation.
All right, sir. Anyway, Ali, thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure having you in the show. And I would also thank our friends from UK, Magan Singh Saab. Thank you so much, sir, for your participation. And Mandeep Singh Bajwa, it was a pleasure having you, sir. We will keep on, in fact, having you in our shows as well in the future. But it was a pleasure talking to you. And let's hope that the issues are sorted out soon, sir, and the farmers are given, a free hand to farm and to produce and to look after the affairs of India. Was lovely talking to you, sir. Thank you so much. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you inshallah tomorrow at 8. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.